and I run a program for transfer students. So if any of you are, if we're lucky that you come to UC Berkeley and major in an engineering field, that you participate in our transfer pre-engineering program. In addition to those activities, I'm also involved in a number of other organizations. Leadership is one, and the National Science Foundation. From time to time, I work with NSF. If you were to tell me when I was a first generation college student that I would be doing these things, going back to the don't be shy, I was very shy. I probably would not have believed you if you told me that. But I will tell you one thing: knowing yourself, knowing what motivates you, and being genuine to yourself, and surrounding yourself with people that support you. And the fact that you're involved in this project, this C6 project, you have that. Whether or not you realize it, you have people that are supporting you and people that want you to succeed. I also run a website called REUFinder.com, which is really something we talk about, motivation and why people are motivated to participate in certain things. REUFinder came from my experience as a first generation college student, not knowing what I didn't know and not knowing how to ask for help. And so this is something that I have created. And the goal really is to make it easy for students, to find out about scholarships, about research programs, and about conferences, and just general advice that I believe is useful for STEM students. I've worked with STEM students for the past 23 years. So I've worked with STEM students for a long time. And kind of keeping my ear to what, students are looking for and really making it easy, because I know all of you that are on the call today, and maybe we even have some counselors that are on the call today as well, or perhaps some faculty, there's a lot of information, right? And it can be very overwhelming. So I hope that through today's talk and through the REUFinder website, that I've made it a little bit more efficient, so you can focus more on preparing your applications and less on, going through this, extensive Google search, right? That is very time consuming. So research. What exactly is research? So to put it simply, the creation of new knowledge and or the use of existing knowledge in a new and creative way as to generate new concepts, methodologies, and understandings. That's kind of the formal definition of research. But I'm curious, and I would like to hear from you. So if you can, in the chat, tell me when you think of research, what immediately comes to mind? Anything that comes to mind when you hear the word research, if you just put it in the chat, anything that comes to mind. You can just chat it in, anything that comes to mind when you think about research. Studying, science, okay. Data collection, okay. New things, exploration, a job. Let me ask you another question. How hard is it to get involved in research? So how hard do you think it is to get involved in research? Do you need a certain GPA? Do you need to have certain classes? Do you need to be in a certain major? Do you need to wait till you transfer to the 4-year? Okay, so here's what we have. You got to know people. Hard if you don't know how to network. All right. What else? What else do you think? So I will be honest with you. I spend a lot of time on Reddit. spend a lot of time on Reddit, kind of looking to see what students, the questions that students ask. And there are some misconceptions about research. So before we kind of get into, how to get involved in research, I'd like to go ahead and kind of cover some of those things that I do see on Reddit, some myths, if you will. So before we do that, by the end of this talk, you're going to know the types of research. You're going to know how to get into research and how to leverage your research experience. So you're going to know all that, the types of research available, how to get into research, and how to leverage your research experience. Will you enjoy research? You might enjoy research. You probably will enjoy research. I think you probably will, because many of you, if we went around in your majors, you will see that as a STEM student, creating new knowledge and really kind of, exploring a new topic and kind of having innovative ideas is a lot of what research is. Will you like it? Hands-on. Most engineers and STEM folks do like hands-on, although some people like the theoretical aspects of their projects. If you like to work with other people, if you like to question everything, and if you want to create new knowledge. Now, let me ask you this. Are there any of you that have worked on projects just for fun? That could be just working on a project just for fun. Maybe you are building something. Maybe you have something you're very passionate about, and it's not with a class per se. It's just something that you're doing in your spare time because it's interesting. Or maybe something that you've always wanted to learn about. So building, yes. So Sergio, what are you building, if you want to share? Robotics, okay. Christopher, furniture building, yes. It's just funny. I'm one of those people who, when I go to IKEA, I think, oh, I have to go home and put it together. I know a lot of my engineering students are like, oh, you're so lucky, you get to go home and put it together, right? Automotive, yes, absolutely. So putting things together, these are kind of science, STEM, engineering type things. If you like that, if that's what, kind of fits what you're interested in doing, research might be for you. Okay, so let's go over some myths about research. And these are straight from Reddit. Unless you have a 4.0, you will not be able to get involved in research. Do you think that's true? If you have a 4.0, you will not be able to get involved in research. No. Your GPA alone does not dictate whether or not you can obtain a research position. If you look on REUFinder.com, what you'll find is many programs either A, don't even include the GPA because they don't want to restrict students based on GPA, or B, they do not have a 4.0 GPA. I know of programs that want a 2.0 GPA or just someone who's in good academic standing. The GPA itself is not an indicator of whether or not you can obtain a research position. The GPA itself does not tell the whole story. So if you're like worried, maybe you had a rough semester, right? And, given COVID, given, things that have been going on, lately, there are many students who perhaps opted to take classes pass, no pass, or who maybe took a break, just to kind of figure things out. So your GPA alone is not going to be prohibitive. So if you, are worried about that, then I hope I put your mind at ease. Another myth, it's better to wait until you transfer to pursue research. Absolutely not. You can wait if you want to, but you don't have to. And there are a number of programs that are actively recruiting community college students. There are programs that will often, maybe they'll overtly say that we welcome applications from community college students. So if you see that, Sure, that gives you the green light that you should apply. But then you also might see that they accept first and second year students. So if you are a first year student, second year student, if you've taken only lower division courses, and if you're at a community college, then that's generally the case, that you've only taken the lower division courses, simply because that's what's offered at your school. You can still apply to research. There are also opportunities where no prior research experience is needed. So if you're worried that you don't have the prior experience, it's not a concern, because they'll essentially show you and train you everything that you need to know. So if you're worried about that and you think, oh, I'm not as qualified, I'm not going to get the opportunity, then don't worry about that. Third, a lot of people think you can only do research directly related to your major. Not true. So I'm curious, and you can put it in the chat. What are some of your majors that you're pursuing? So what are you majoring in right now? And if you don't know, it's completely okay. If you're like, maybe engineering, but I don't know what kind. So let's see, we have math, we have pharmacology, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, biology, mechanical engineering, quite popular, electrical engineering. So you might be saying to yourself, okay, here is a project that is for aerospace engineers, but I'm mechanical. You can, since aerospace is a branch of mechanical engineering, but as an electrical engineer, you can also do a project in aerospace engineering. So don't think that the project itself is only limited to students in those majors, chemical engineering. So what you will see oftentimes when you see research projects is many times they will ask for STEM majors. Sometimes they don't even ask for STEM majors. Sometimes they'll say, someone who, has taken a chemistry class, or someone who's, will be taking, a class in the future, right? Or maybe somebody who has basic coding, understanding of coding. And sometimes there's not even those restrictions. But mainly, and more importantly, is the interest and the passion and the willingness to learn. So you do not have to do a research project directly related to your major. Research is research. So if you're interested in something and you want to learn more, they'll be happy to have you. And the fourth one, research is only helpful if you are planning to go to graduate school or to become a researcher. That's absolutely not true either. So here's the deal. All of you are now at the community college. Maybe you're not sure what you want to transfer to at the 4-year, or maybe you have some idea, but you haven't really had experience in that major. If you have a research experience, having that research experience might actually, one, show you applications in the major, or two, it'll demonstrate interest in the major, which, as you know, when it comes time to apply to transfer schools, one of the things that you'll be asked on your essay, whether it's a UC essay or whether it's the common application essay, they're going to ask you about your interest in the major and preparing for upper division classes. And if you have a research experience on your resume, that is a great illustration of interest and preparation for upper division. In addition, it can also help you get a job in industry. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, how? How can getting a research position help me get a job in industry? For many of the jobs that many of you will be applying to, you might have something called a behavioral interview. And a behavioral interview is often an interview where they might present you with a scenario, like tell us about a time when you worked as part of a team, right? So that's a classic behavioral question. But in addition, you might also get a technical interview. And a technical interview really is kind of, they want to see how you think and they want to see how you communicate. And so being in a research position, you will have to communicate your findings to your teammates in your lab, and you'll have to communicate the overall project. And those are fantastic ways to prepare for technical interviews. So again, don't worry, if maybe you don't want to go to grad school, maybe your goal is, I see that we have some electrical engineers, mechanical engineers on here, maybe your goal is as soon as you get your bachelor's degree that you get a job in industry. And that's fantastic. But having a research experience, will likely help you as you, not only as you prepare for those interviews, but also, perhaps it might be something that's really goes hand in hand with the industry that you're working in. So the types of programs. So as I mentioned, I used to work at a community college. I worked at Skyline College in the Bay Area for 8 years. And I had a number of students that would participate in research. And I would say that there are 3 types of programs that very likely that you will participate in. One might be a summer enrichment program. Do we have any pre-med or pre-vet or pre-farm students on here? If you have any pre-med students, summer enrichment programs are really good, especially for pre-med students. The summer enrichment program, it might have a research component, or it might have an introduction to, medical school. Sometimes they'll actually be at a medical school, and you might have a research component as well. It might be a guided research project, or it might be a project where multiple students work together. But a summer enrichment program is something that students will oftentimes participate in. In addition, sometimes summer enrichment programs tend to be shorter. Maybe it's a 2-week program. I believe it was Carnegie Mellon has like a 2-week program in computer science for students. So some of those programs, I call those enrichment programs. So they might be a little bit shorter, but they are very valuable nonetheless. Another one is the REU program, REU standing for Research Experience for Undergrads. Those programs tend to be about 8 to 10 weeks. They are generally paid. They usually take place on a college campus, and they usually take place over the summer. So those are programs where you can go for the summer. You can go to either a lab or you can go to another university. I think the closest university, if I'm not mistaken, to Hancock College would be UC Santa Barbara, if I'm not correct. So perhaps UC Santa Barbara might be a school, but you don't have to limit yourself to the area. There are these programs all over the country, all over the country, actually all over the world, to be honest. So if you want to participate in one of these programs, you can. And again, it might be at a lab, in a lab setting, it might be at a medical school, or it might be at a university. The last are academic year research programs. Now, these can usually take place during the academic year, and you can work with your community college faculty and or partnerships with local university. Now, as I mentioned, when I worked at Skyline College, we had a partnership. We had 2 partnerships. We had one with San Francisco State University, which was the closest CSU. They had a Bridges to Baccalaureate program where they brought students to work, during the academic year. It was pretty close. But then we also had a partnership where they paid our students to work with our faculty at Skyline. In addition, we had a partnership with Stanford where we had students do research on our campus, and then we had postdocs come and talk with our Skyline students. Postdocs refers to somebody who has their PhD and who is, has a doctorate degree, but is not yet a faculty or not yet a research scientist. So that's a collaboration that we had. And so those 3 types of programs, any one of you on this call today can get invited to and participate in one of those if you, are interested. Okay, finding opportunities. So this is where, I hope I've, made it somewhat easy because there are a lot of resources out there. But this list alone will completely get you started if you're looking for opportunities. So if you are pre-med, And even if you're not pre-med, chances are you have friends that are pre-med. So the AAMC is a great resource. This website has all of the pre-med, not only the pre-med summer programs, but pre-med programs in general for students. So these are helpful if you are interested in medical school. There's also something called a post-baccalaureate program. So some of you might decide after you, graduate, hey, I actually want to go to med school. And, you might be missing some classes, and post-baccalaureate programs are really helpful if you change your mind about what you want to do. The second one is the Pathways to Science. Pathways to Science is a great one because maybe you're like, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I don't know, where to search, but I know I want to stay, in the California, right? So you can do a search by that. Or maybe you're the opposite. Maybe you're like, I actually don't want to, stay in California. I've always wanted to go to, New York, right? I think, do we have a question? Or was it just, I'm not sure if we had a question. If you had a question, feel free to type it in the chat. But Pathways to Science is also a really good one. The third is the NSF REU search. Now, I have to be honest, that's not the most exciting one, because basically what that will tell you if there is a NSF REU program at that school, but you still have to click and you still have to, look, but it is helpful, right? Maybe there's a school that you're interested in. Maybe there's a school that you're interested in transferring to. And if you're interested in transferring them to that school, then you can see if they have a program, and it'll be, very informative, and then you can apply to that program. The third one is the REUFinder, which on the REUFinder webpage, I actually have it organized by freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, community college, undocumented students, and international students. You'll notice a lot of the NSF funded programs have the US citizen permanent resident restriction, but that is not at all a barrier to research, because there are a lot of programs that have multiple funding sources. Now, maybe the project itself, right? The project that they're working on is funded by, it could be the Department of Energy, it could be the National Science Foundation, it could be the National Institute of Health, could be a lot of different funding sources. But if there are multiple funding sources, oftentimes students can get funded regardless of their citizenship status. So if you are not a US citizen, please do not, feel that you cannot get funded to do research, because you can. I've seen it. I've worked with students, so you can. On that note, though, only apply to programs that you're eligible for. So let's say, for example, there is a program and they want students that are juniors majoring in, I don't know, computer science, right? And maybe you're a first year student and you're majoring in, bio. Probably not what they're looking for, but you can, look and see, but only apply to programs that you're eligible for. And I say that because you don't want to waste your time if it's not a program that's that you're eligible for. Okay, so letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation are key. And this is where the don't be shy part comes in. Yes to STEM faculty, yes to counselors, yes to MESA directors, STEM center directors, supervisors, and managers. Even if your job has nothing to do with your major or with school, ask for letters of recommendation from these folks. No to family and friends and classmates, even though I'm sure that they could write you very strong letters of recommendation, it just wouldn't be as credible. And so you want to get letters of recommendation from STEM faculty, counselors, directors, and people that will know you. Now, how will they get to know you? How will people get to know you? Now, during COVID, when we were completely remote, that was a bit challenging, right? Because we were all remote. But now that, we're somewhat back in person, and we have opportunities to meet with people, what's a good way to establish a relationship with people that can help you and support you and provide letters of recommendation? What would be a good way to nurture that? Yes, go to professors' office hours. Absolutely. For some reason, there is this belief that the only reason why you go to a professor's office hour is if you're struggling, but that's absolutely not the case. If you're doing very well, go to the office hour. If you're doing, pretty good, go to the office hour. If you're struggling, go to the office hour. Regardless, make that a point to go to the professor's office hours, introduce yourself to the professor. Tell them why they're taking the class. Tell them what you enjoy about the class. Ask them questions. Look on their webpage. Maybe ask them, where they went to college. Did they like where they went to college? What did they major in? This is great. And you can do an informational interview and really, kind of asking them about their experience. And I've met a lot of the faculty from the schools that are on the call today, and they're actually very friendly and they really like working with students. So I really don't think a professor is going to, get mad if you ask them about their experience. They'll probably enjoy it and they'll probably like reminiscing. And let's say that they went to a school that you're thinking of transferring to, they can probably give you some insight about their experience. So as you ask for letters of recommendation, don't just ask for letters of recommendation. Ask for strong letters of recommendation. What are you applying for? Is it a scholarship? Is it a summer program? Explain what the program is and what it entails, and explain why you are applying to this program. And talking points are helpful. Now, you can always give them a copy of your essay because generally you will have to write essays, but I think it's easier if you simply provide talking points. If you provide talking points, these are things that maybe they wouldn't know about you otherwise that are helpful. And really, if you think about why you're applying to this program, what you hope to get out of it, that would be helpful for them, and then they can weave that in the program. So let me ask, I will just, randomly, we have Eduardo. Eduardo is a chemical engineer. Eduardo, tell me why you chose chemical engineering. There's got to be a reason why you chose chemi. And maybe what's your dream job? What do you want to do as a chemical engineer? You currently work with many chemical engineers. Okay, great. Tell me more. Very diverse. Okay. Tell me more. So Eduardo works with a lot of chemies. Okay. So tell me more. And how do you work with chemical engineers? Okay, I don't have the response just yet, but there's a reason why, right? There's a reason why you decided to do chemical engineering, and maybe you want to be a chemical engineer. Maybe you want to, depending on what it is you want to do, but you want to tell that story. You help them with research and projects for developing new systems. Fantastic. So your professor might not know that, right? Your professor might not know that. So as you talk to, whoever's writing your letter of recommendation, as much information as possible, they can write you a strong letter of recommendation. Okay, so creating a resume. So resume is very important for any college student to have, and all of you should have a resume. A resume typically will include the following: education. So where are you right now, where you're going to school? And if you're planning to transfer, you can also put, even if you don't know where you're going to transfer, I would put, when you intend to transfer, the month and date. Your courses taken, so what you have taken, but only the courses that you've taken that are related to the major, right? So generally speaking, your STEM courses, your GPA, you should include your GPA on that as well. Projects that you've done, it doesn't even have to be, STEM projects. It could be, maybe you're involved in student government. Maybe you're involved in a club on campus. Leadership, anything that you're doing that's illustrates your leadership, could be on campus, could be off campus. Volunteer experience, it might include research and interests and hobbies. Now, here's the thing. In addition to being helpful to have all of these things on your resume for research internships and programs, this is also helpful because as you apply to the university, on the application, they're going to ask you this as well. So if you keep track of these things and you stay organized, it's really helpful. So then when you apply to the university, you'll have all of this. Now, one thing I do caution you, when you apply to the university, it might be tempting to put down things that you did in high school. You really, really want to focus on what you did at community college. In addition, I think it's a missed opportunity if you don't include the C6 program, right? It's a huge missed opportunity. So I would include that you're part of this program, how you've taken advantage of it, the services that you've utilized, because guess what? The LSAMP is an NSF funded program. Many of these programs are funded by the NSF or other entities as well. And so really showing that you've been part of a program is very strong. In addition, if you're in Mesa, put down Mesa. All right. Personal history statement. So again, when you transfer, you're going to have to write a personal history statement. Now, let's say, for example, you're like, well, I'm going to a CSU, so I don't necessarily have to write a personal history statement. That might be true, but if you apply to, let's say, EOP, or if you apply to a scholarship program, or you apply to any other program, basically, you'll probably will have to write a personal history statement. So it's very helpful to have. So a personal history statement basically will have, who are you? Where are you from? What experience have shaped your decision to pursue research? And why this program? So why this program? What are your goals? And how this experience will help you meet these goals? So as you look at programs, I would say, think about your goals and think about programs that could perhaps lead you to certain goals. Now, let's say, for example, your dream is to study bioengineering and you want to transfer to UC San Diego, right? So if your goal is to transfer to UC San Diego and study bioengineering, and you see a program that's at UC San Diego and it has research in bioengineering, then that would be a perfect way to talk about why you want to do this program and how it'll help you meet those goals. Generally speaking, you will have to do a research statement if you apply for a research program, and they might ask you who you want to work with, what project, what specific skills you have, the motivation, and the institution that you want to work at. So it depends on where you're applying. But again, I think that if you have a good sense of what you're interested in working on, and you're open, maybe you don't know specifically who you want to work with, but you take the time to read the projects that are available, that's huge. Even though you might be like open, even though you might say, oh, I'll work on any project. Sometimes students will say, oh, well, that just shows I'm flexible. Actually, it doesn't. It shows that you haven't read what's available. So read the opportunities, read the projects, read about what's available, and specifically list your projects that you're interested in working on. Does anyone have any questions? I feel like I'm going over a lot, and I really want to make sure that you all have your questions answered. How do you find a mentor? That's an excellent question. How do you find a mentor? So There's two ways to find a mentor. One is through formal mentoring programs. So I don't know if your campus has Puente, the Puente program. That's a great program. That's a program that actually has a built-in mentorship in the program. That's one way. Another way would be programs like SOCNIS. I don't know if, I think Hancock actually has a SOCNIS chapter, and I believe Santa Barbara also has a SOCNIS chapter. SOCNIS is a great organization. Oftentimes there will be, there'll be opportunities via networking sessions. If you go to the national conference, if you go to any of the, events, and any organization like SOCNIS or like SHIP or SWE or NSBE, any of those organizations, basically you can have an informal mentor or you can have a formal mentor. If you, SHIP, I believe, has it's called mentorship, right? They have something where you can sign up, or if it's an informal mentoring thing, maybe it's somebody who has, your dream job. Maybe it's someone who's from the same town you're from and they're doing something very cool. You might ask them, hey, would you be okay if I connected with you on LinkedIn, or would it be okay if I exchange contact information and follow up with you, maybe schedule, a coffee chat or a Zoom chat? That's kind of an informal way to have a mentor. And I will tell you that it might seem really scary at first to ask for someone, if they would follow up with you. But the thing is that oftentimes, especially if it's someone who you have something in common with, if it's someone from your hometown, I pretty much guarantee, especially if you're from a small town, somebody who's from your small town or from your same city, chances are they're going to be excited. They're going to be excited. And if it's somebody who's, perhaps has a career in an area that you're looking to fall into, they understand and they know what it's like to be a college student. And think of the setting too, right? So for example, let's say that you go to the SOCNIS conference, right? Let's say you go to the SOCNIS conference, or you go to like a regional event and there's a speaker there. Do you really think the speaker is going to say, no, I don't want to talk to students? No, right? They're going to say, of course, right? So anybody that I, interact with, I want to talk to students, right? I think a lot of us are eager and excited to talk to students. So don't feel that, that people are going to be mean, right? And if somebody says, no, I'm just too busy, okay, that's fine. Then, find somebody else. It's just not a good mentor. But I think this goes back to the, the shyness conversation, and really just kind of having the aspirations and having the motivation to connect with people. I think connecting with people is a very valuable tool that is overlooked often. Good question. Any other questions? So as we mentioned, there's academic year research, there's summer research, there's formal, there's informal, post-grad, maybe you have already have your degree, right? Maybe you already have your degree, and maybe you are taking classes at the community college. Maybe you're going to be transferring. Maybe you're not sure, when you're going to be transferring. It doesn't matter. I would say network. The conference that I mentioned was SOCNIS, and they actually have travel scholarships where they will send students to conferences. We always, on our REUFinder, we always put the list of all the different conferences. There's a lot of different conferences, and oftentimes they will have funding for students to go. In addition, your school might actually have funding through Associated Students. You all pay student fees, and so oftentimes they might have funding. Your school might be able to provide funding. I know that, a lot of schools and a lot of programs will bring students to conferences. So if that's something you're interested in, maybe they'll pay for a portion of it, you might have to cover some of it. Scholarships, certainly, you know, travel scholarships or just scholarships in general, I think are very helpful. Great Minds in STEM, for example, that's one, I think it's actually due the end of this month. That's a good one. They have a conference, so not only do they give you the scholarship, but they also fly you out for their conference. So that's one that you might take advantage of. But there are lots. There are lots of different STEM conferences that you can get involved with. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I like connecting with students. I like being a resource. My motivation basically was because, you know, as a first generation college student, there was, you know, a whole world that I didn't know about. And I think that there's also, you know, I read a lot of scholarship applications, and it's really interesting. You know, sometimes we don't have a lot of applicants. And oftentimes if you see something that says, you know, deadline extended, that means that they didn't get enough applicants. So as you look for research opportunities or just opportunities in general, if you see that it says deadline extended, that means that they haven't got enough applicants. At the same time, if you see optional, so anytime you apply to anything and it says optional, I would take it as required, right? Because that'll show interest. So if it says, you know, if it says 1 letter of recommendation required, 2 optional, I would do the 2, but that's just me, right? Or if it says, you know, 1 essay required, 2 optional, I would do the 2, just because you want to show interest. And yeah, is there any questions at all? I really want to just make sure that we have anyone's questions answered. Looks like, is there a place where the meeting recording is posted? Oh, I'll actually share the, I'll share the slides. And then I think they're usually posted on the C6 website. And then my contact information, I'm on LinkedIn, so please feel free. I can put my LinkedIn in the chat if you'd like to connect.
I will put in the email address
for
the C6 website where the recording will be posted. Just give me a couple days to get it posted.
Yeah, I've noticed there's a lot of the there's a whole library of great videos and a lot of speakers. So I would definitely you know, take advantage of those resources and watch the videos and include on your resumes and include in your you know, statements that you're a part of this program, because this program is designed to support students. And I think that it's really a good selling point if you illustrate not only how it impacted you and how it helped you, but also that you benefited from this program, right? It's really about paying it forward. And anytime, if you ever get any, you know, like surveys or anything from the program, please, you know, fill those out, because that really does make a big difference. Because I know that, you know, funding and additional funding, and, you know, I mean, if you benefited from it, then the longevity of the program, that means that somebody else will benefit from it. And so it's all about paying it forward. And I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat. Let's see. But does anyone else have any other questions about anything? I feel like I've covered a lot. Let's see. My Wi-Fi is very slow. Okay, let me see. Oh, here it is. Okay, I'm gonna put this. Oh, just kidding. Okay, I'll put it in right now. Yeah, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. And oh, this is a great question. Very good question. This is from Marcos. Marcos says, is it okay if you do research at a different university than the one that you are attending? Absolutely. This shows range. So absolutely. Not only does it show range, but also you can also get networking opportunities. So you can get a letter of recommendation from somebody at the other university. And then of course, at your university, you know, you'll have people that you work with there. That's an excellent question. In fact, when you transfer to your four-year school, I would highly, highly encourage you all to do research at a school other than your transfer university, because you can do research during the academic year at your school, but you can do research at, you know, another university during the summer. In addition, you might want to do study abroad if that's an option. Sometimes there's even research abroad. I know the Amgen Scholars Program, it's a very big, you know, program that they actually have sites all over the world. So if you want to do international, you know, research, that's an option as well. If you're like, oh, that's not for me, then that's okay too. But really, the only limitation is, you know, the limitations that we put on ourselves. So really don't put that limitation on yourself, right? It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to, you know, to have uncertainties, but I really encourage you, ask questions from your faculty, ask questions from your mentors, ask questions from, you know, people that are, you know, maybe there's perhaps students that from your community college that have transferred that you can connect with them. Again, you know, people want to help other people. The STEM community, I mean, we all know how challenging and how difficult these majors are. And I guarantee if you meet with another transfer student who's at a university, even if they have never met you, there's this instant connection and there's this instant affinity, because people know and they understand what it's like to go through the community college transfer process, and they will easily want to connect and want to support and help you. Another question, if you want to do research at a UC you will attend, will they work with your schedule, or do you need to find an opportunity that fits your schedule? That's a good question. So generally speaking, a lot of these programs are full-time programs, but with that said, sometimes whoever the person that's running the program, maybe like if you're like, hey, you know, I have, you know, these 2 days in July where I'm not available, they'll usually work with your schedule. Typically, you don't want to work and do these programs, or typically you don't want to take classes and do these programs. If it's an online class, sometimes it works. I mean, I've seen students do that, but you definitely don't want to double book yourself, because if you double book yourself, you know, then it might not, you know, go well. What should I look for when researching? Is it for me? I would say look at, and depending on what your major is. Marcos, what is your major? Did you tell us what your major? Are you the chemi student? No, what's your major, Marcos? I'm scrolling here. Oh, math. Oh, okay. So there's math REUs, there's computer science REUs. I would maybe look at, as a math major, I would maybe look at math. I would maybe look at computer science. I would maybe look at data science, that those might be of interest to you. You know, math is kind of the building block of all of this, right? But they generally want someone who can think critically. And as a math major, I mean, you know, but I would look for, you know, maybe you're interested, depending on what you're interested in. I know Cal State San Bernardino has a math REU that's been going on for a while. That might be one that you're interested in. And then there's others as well. that you can look at. But you don't have to just do a math REU. There's other ones as well. But I would look at the projects. I would look at the projects and see if the projects are, if they sound exciting, if they sound like, if you're reading the projects and you think, oh, that sounds really cool. Like I'd love to get involved in that. Then you should, consider that. There's also a conference, a math conference that you might consider, the TAPIA conference, TAPIA, as a math student. That might be something that you'd look into as well. These are good questions. How far ahead do you usually need to apply for research opportunities? Great question. So believe it or not, there are still programs recruiting for this summer. Not as many, but there are still some. I know Kansas, University of Kansas has one that they just sent me, and they're like, hey, we need people. So there still are some programs, but I would say October of next year, or this year, October is when you're gonna find like the big, bulk of them will be released. So what does that mean? Does that mean you wait until October? No, it means you start looking at programs, because remember, programs that are happening this year, you're going to apply for those in the fall for next year, right? But I would say September, October, have your resume, have your letters of recommendation people lined up, and have your, kind of what you're looking for, right? So you can spend summer, looking at programs. You can actually talk to people, maybe maybe you have friends that are doing research, maybe you have students that have transferred. If you know somebody, maybe you know somebody at UCSB who's doing a research program, go to the poster session. Ask if you can go, ask if you can check it out. Oftentimes people that do these programs, they'll send the students back to their home campuses, and they'll want them to recruit students. And so maybe they can refer you. These are good questions. Any other questions? Has anyone here done research? Also, if any of you are involved in any honors classes, or if you take classes like for honors units, or if you're in like an honors program, you might have already done research, even if it's not like in your major. I had a student who she was like, oh, I did a research project, but it wasn't in STEM. Well, as I talked to her, she actually did a research project and she presented her project, right? So that works too. So, maybe a project that you've done, a research project, an independent project, or maybe you've, worked with a professor. It doesn't have to be in STEM. That just shows that you've, participated. So I would list that if that's, your scenario. So I would say October, September, that's when the bulk of these opportunities, will be listed. Sometimes the deadlines, sometimes some of them don't even go online until December, but the bulk of them, October-ish is when they start coming out. The deadlines vary. The earliest deadline is usually January. Usually the Department of Energy labs, they have the earliest deadlines. Their deadlines tend to be like the second week of January. And then, of course, there's also the Department of Energy also has academic year opportunities as well. So let's say, for example, you want to do an academic year opportunity. I think those are due for fall. If you want to do that in fall, that would be due in May. But generally the fall semester is when they're released, and then in spring semester is when the deadlines Another good question. What does a project need to contain in order to be considered research? I've done some projects for work, developing experiments for science classes, but I'm not sure if it qualifies. Well, depending on the projects that you've done from work, if you've had to go back and you've had to look at prior research, right? Background research, and expand upon existing knowledge or try new things, that sounds like research to me. Is there any way to prove that you've done research without having publications? That's another good question. No, you know, it's basically the honor system, right? I mean, obviously, you know, if you say that you've done research somewhere or worked with someone, people will take that at face value. Now, you would obviously need to include where you did it and, you know, who you worked with. But if you don't have a publication, that's completely fine. You can still list it on your resume or list it on your applications, and you just simply, you know, list who you worked with. Sometimes, depending on the project, sometimes you can't reveal a lot, right? Like, let's say, for example, it's a super secret, you know, project. You might have to, you know, sign what's called an NDA, where you can't disclose, but usually that's usually more internships. Oftentimes internships will have you do those. So like, let's say you work at Apple, right? Apple's very secretive. Or let's say you know, you work on something that's kind of top secret. But generally speaking, these aren't things that have that, but once in a while. Good questions though, very thoughtful questions. It looks like we have Allen Hancock College, Ventura College. Yeah, this is exceptional. I mean, I have to say, I've worked with students from all these schools, and you know, your predecessors have done some really amazing things. So go out there and apply, and you know, take advantage, take the advice, and do it. I mean, I know that, you know, it kind of can be intimidating, but these programs are actively recruiting students just like you, and you'll get paid. You'll get paid to do this, and it'll be fun. And then, yeah, and then you'll say, oh, what was I worried about? And maybe you'll find a major, maybe you'll find a career. You know, it'll be a good experience.
Any final questions for Tiffany before we wrap things up? Tiffany, thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure.